Jasas.
Hola.
Vítejte. SYNAPSES Academy.
Welcome to the SYNAPSES Academy podcast, a podcast in which experts from various fields provide their tips on sustainability citizenship in education. Activism, the world around us, and aligning those with the curriculum. Education does not exist in its own bubble, but how do you rhyme or align it with societal developments? In today's episode, we will discuss these challenges and potential solutions. Enjoy! Hello, good day, and with us we have today Wieneke Maris. Wieneke, you have been introduced to me through a colleague of yours, Mark Bode, and I know you through the organization Teachers for Climate as the person who traveled throughout Europe to identify how different EU countries implement teaching for sustainability in schools. We will go into this a lot more later, but first, you do also a lot more than that. Can you briefly introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Myrthe. I'm a geography and humanities teacher at the International School of The Hague. And I also coordinate the Global Issues Network, which is an extracurricular program where students lead their own project on sustainability, which is a form of service and experiential learning. And next to school, I also lead teacher workshops for the International Baccalaureate and about sustainability.
Nice.
And maybe, it's not. There's more. As a part of my journey through Europe, I've, together with people I met along the way, we've started another Erasmus project like yours, about to support schools in integrating sustainability structurally. Because what I've seen on my journey is fantastic and really inspiring examples, but something that schools and teachers struggle with is to structurally and truly embed it. So it doesn't stay with one temporary project or that really rests on the shoulders of a small group of people, but that's actually where the continuity is guaranteed.
Great, that sounds like a beautiful project as well. Yeah. So you're going to be speaking today from the perspective of a teacher. We spoke a bit about Teachers for Climate. So for any teachers that are listening as well, check out the work that they are doing. But today we'll mostly be speaking about school leaders and how they can support curriculum alignment across the board. So Wieneke, you have seen practices throughout Europe. Can you talk a bit about those? What have you seen? Any good practices that our listeners might be able to adopt?
Yeah, really, some really cool and very inspiring things. Maybe the one that stands out most is the Real School in Budapest in Hungary. That's a school that is completely based around the idea of social entrepreneurship and sustainability. And they, for example, have dream to reality projects where students start projects based on a real question from society. So it's authentic. And together collaboratively work towards a solution. And something students, when we were there, were very proud to show us was a magazine they made about the impacts of fast fashion and solutions to it. And this was what really impressed me was that it was a whole school project. So it was all year levels, all students from different ages and different subject teachers were a part of it. Where students researched the impacts of fast fashion, made a magazine together with parents who were actual editors of magazines, who could help them with that. And they learned about upcycling their old clothes and had a fashion show about that, which was open to the community so they could really raise awareness.
That sounds fantastic, yeah.
Yeah, it was very cool. And I think part of why students were so proud is because it was real.
So they made that link to the outside world or to the bigger picture than just the school context.
Yeah, exactly. Or just something they do just for the teacher to be able to mark their work.
And you mentioned interdisciplinary work. Teachers are often very fond of their own subjects. How did that work?
Yeah, this is I think a challenge we need to address with education for sustainability is we know that the problems we're looking at when it comes to sustainability we will not be able to solve them just looking at it from one discipline. So interdisciplinarity in education is essential to be able to address that. And I think a good example where I see it work is in the International Baccalaureate, where I also teach.
Can you explain what that is?
Yeah, it's an international program worldwide that started from being able to provide students of traveling parents continuity in their education, because schools all have followed the same program. But it's no longer really just for international schools. It's a lot of national schools adopt it. And I think it's a beautiful model for education that is holistic. It's not just about the knowledge, but it's also about what kind of person you want to become. And what I love most is the mission and the vision, which is education for a better world. And part of this is interdisciplinary units, is interdisciplinary learning, where you together with teachers from different disciplines choose a topic or an issue and write a program around that integrates the knowledge from different programs, so that different teachers have their own subject knowledge to add and to build a program together.
And they manage to work well together.
Yeah, and this of course needs to be facilitated with time. And there's a structure. What are sort of the building blocks of an interdisciplinary unit? And that really helps.
Right. So that's where the role of the school leader comes in. How can we give that time?
Exactly. How do you provide that time? And I think a little bit of professional development as well. We teachers aren't necessarily trained to work interdisciplinary.
Well, I think that's a very important subject as well for sustainability education. We cannot just talk about how we can start a green transition in the world, but we also have to collaborate.
Well, yes, and that brings me to the vision of Teachers for Climate. We want sustainability to be integrated in education more. And to facilitate this, we've created a model, we've designed a model that is a whole school approach to sustainability that includes what we teach, the curriculum, how we teach, the pedagogy, and the school environment and culture. And those work together and need to be aligned to achieve planetary citizenship, which is what we see as the embodiment of realizing that we are part of a worldwide ecosystem. And we're not more important than all the other organisms in it. And our actions do affect everybody and everything else. So we'll need to take that into account. So the goal was planetary citizenship, where we embody that we are aware that we are part of a global ecosystem that consists of all living and non-living elements in the world, and we are not more important than the others. And what we do has an impact on the whole system. So we need to take that into account into our decisions.
And so when it comes to bringing those ideas to the classroom, how do you go about it? Who do you involve? Where do you make a start?
So I think it's important to be aware that sustainability or education for sustainability is also the way you teach. And it's a democratic co-creation. So students become partners in that process. So they get the agency and the responsibility for their own learning. The real question is, what does the world need from education, and what does the world therefore need from you? And what is it that you can bring? And for that, this becomes a process where you involve teachers, but you also involve students, school leadership, perhaps parents, maybe facilitatory people at the school.
So you really try to involve everyone, both inside as well as around the school.
Yeah, it's exactly. You want to involve the community. Yeah. And
I mean, you have a very strong view, I think, on your education. What if parents disagree? Do you ever how do you deal with parents that have divergent views on these questions that you have?
Yeah, I think really important part of that journey for sustainability in education is that you involve all stakeholders in the process where you, in our Sustainability Accelerator program, we call it resonance. You formulate a vision, you go and find resonance with all stakeholders, including parents. How do they feel about this? What is their perspective? What do they have to bring to that vision? You go back to the design process and you might adapt it based on those. At some point, you will have a clear vision and you'll need to, I guess, be courageous and stand behind that.
Yeah. And I mean, still, I can imagine you've just told a class and a week later you've got a parent at your door who really doesn't agree with you. Both, how would you go about that? But also, do you get any support in that? Would you need any support in that?
Yeah, I think you definitely need support. First, of course, you have a conversation. You try to explain where you are coming from and listening to where parents are coming from. If it really is not aligned with the school's mission and vision, then I, as a teacher, would hope that my school leadership stands behind me or beside me and supports me in this conversation or even takes over.
I think that's a very clear message, yeah. So is there anything else you would like to add on how you can integrate sustainability into the curriculum?
Yes, very much. I think a couple of messages. Research shows that actually the way we teach has a much stronger impact on acting sustainably than the things we teach, which I think is quite new. When we talk about education for sustainability, maybe the first thing we think about is the curriculum, but it's actually also the pedagogy. And important things there are to ask yourself, and I actually think the whole school team, what is it that we see that the world needs? And how do we think we can get there? And for me, an answer to that question is we need compassion and we need collaboration. And that means the way I teach needs to be collaborative and needs to be compassionate. And adding those or providing my students with skills that are needed for that.
That's a great message. And as long as you manage to do it and maybe bring that message to your colleagues as well, great. Well, before we round up, I would like to ask you 2 more questions. Let's start off with, if there's one thing that you can advise to our listeners, what is one thing that they could implement tomorrow? Maybe in short, is there a quick fix, something simple?
There are definitely a lot of things you can do tomorrow. I don't think education for sustainability is possible with a quick fix. It is a long process. And if you want to go fast, go alone. But I think we need to go far. And so we need to go together. And that means involve your colleagues, involve your students, involve your community. Get your school leadership behind you or on board. Or school leaders. Invite your teachers to come on board. You can start this. And together, think of what it is that you want to address, make a plan, and go for that. Something you can do tomorrow is find allies. This is my biggest advice, I suppose, to teachers. Go and find allies. Maybe they're your colleagues, maybe they're some students, maybe there are parents who you know also care about sustainability. Join up, make a plan, because you will go much further that way.
Great, yeah. And then to close off, would you be willing to share your own climate advice with that listeners can maybe even implement into their own daily life?
Yeah, I'd love to. I try with everything I do to ask myself, what is the most sustainable way to do this? And so as a result, I don't own a car. I cycle or go by train. I try to eat plant-based. I buy most things I own secondhand. And for example, plant-based, that was, I think, my latest challenge. How can I eat completely plant-based? And I didn't find that easy. So I did it together with a colleague. We set ourselves the challenge to eat plant-based for a month. And it was nice to be able to share it, the things you find difficult or recipes or good alternatives. It just made it more fun and, definitely more achievable.
Make allies. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess here as well.
And of course, in the Netherlands, we're very lucky to be able to cycle, which not all listeners might be able to do to their job. But, I think every place has its own challenges and its own opportunities.
Yeah, true.
All right. Thank you, Wieneke, for today. And thank you for listening.
My pleasure.
You were listening to an episode of the SYNAPSES Academy podcast. For more information about Synapses or to learn more about our speakers, please look up the links in the show notes. This production was funded by the European Union and produced by the European Schoolheads Association. Views and opinions expressed are, however, those of the consortium only and do not necessarily reflect those of the European Union. Neither the European Union nor the granting authority can be held responsible for them.